Hello, everyone. This is, hold on.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. This is Kate Sweeney with LiveWell, Colorado. I'll be your moderator for today's webinar, and I have a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. First, there will be a recording of this webinar, and it will be available beginning tomorrow morning on the LiveWell Colorado website. To access the recording, simply visit livewellcolorado.org, click on LiveWell's Commitment tab, click on Research and Publications, and select Webinars. Second, we will have some time for some Q&A at the end of the webinar. If possible, please let us know who your question is directed to when you ask it. And to ask a question, just simply type it into the Questions tab on your on-screen control panel. And now I'd like to introduce our first presenter today, Lisa Walvoord.
Thanks so much, Kate, and welcome everybody to this webinar. We're really excited about being able to have some great federal and state experts talk to you about whether and how some of your projects and programs may fit some of the current funding grant priorities. We know that there's a lot of excitement and a lot of work going on around food systems in Colorado and a lot of need for funding. So a very timely webinar, we believe. So the objectives for today are to share some of the upcoming and common federal grant opportunities that might support your projects, to share resources and worksheets to help guide those of you who are looking for grant opportunities, and discuss some of the fit with various grant opportunities. And to that end, all registrants should have received an email this morning that included a couple of attachments, including a worksheet. And if you're able to have that worksheet in front of you, that may be useful as we go through the webinar. So we're going to get a quick overview on the growth in food systems funding from Don Thillmany, and then hear presentations from three speakers around USDA Rural Food Systems Grants and CDA's projects to grow local markets for Colorado agriculture, and then some more information kind of bookended by Don around additional opportunities and tips for finding the right grant. And then I'll share with you some closing thoughts before we open it up to Q&A. So to repeat Kate's request, if you have questions along the way, please do put them in the question box. And if you know who you want them to go to, please include that. We've also shared with you already, and we'll share again, the contact information for each of the speakers so that you can follow up with them with additional questions as you may have them. So with that, I'm excited to introduce to you Don Thillmany, who's a professor and agribusiness extension economist at Colorado State University. She co-leads the CSU Food Systems team and the Colorado Building Farmers Program, and also serves on national boards with USDA, the National Ag and Rural Development Center, and the American Applied Economics Association. And she actually, with all that intelligence that she has, she actually knows how to speak about it in a way that we can understand it. So it's exciting. Don, we're going to hand it over to you now.
Hello, everybody. I did want to take the chance to set up our full talk for today by talking a little bit about what I perceive has led to these funding opportunities being available, and hoping that might give you some insight into both how to approach these programs and how to think within your organizations of how to use those investments the government's making in these new models. And some of these slides are embedded later in the presentation, and you'll get to see them if you want to remember some of these talking points. One interesting thing is, even before food systems emerged, we've always had really strong evidence that there's been really good public returns to research, particularly in agriculture. A lot of the development and economic development of this country was based on that. But what you're seeing now is that there's a new appreciation for how economic and community development opportunities are revisiting agriculture, which was once thought of as a very traditional industry. You're seeing a new revitalized energy around the idea that some of these new models might be great for job creation and for community building. But the government is also realizing that with these new models, we also might need a different version of research and technical assistance or business strategies. So they're willing to share some of the risk with those of you in enterprises and organizations who are willing to try those new models to see if they might be fruitful for our economy and our communities. So what you're going to hear about today is a full continuum, really, of everything from some basic research opportunities to really applied research or business development you can do in your organizations or communities. And some of the key issues driving this that you might want to think about as you're framing how you would maybe sell yourself to a potential grant funder is that they're all looking for a way to look at place-based investments. And what I mean by that is that they want to test in the field whether some things that they're learning from research, whether it be how people are eating differently because of access they have to food, how we're able to grow more in urban areas because of new models of agriculture and markets. And they want to be able to test those in the fields, and that's where they need you. They need you to say, we're the right organization, we're at the right stage of our business, that if you invest a little money here, we not only will grow our business and support our community, but we might be able to be a great case study of where other people might be able to apply this in their own community. And although what we'll talk about today will be grants that are targeted for all kinds of agriculture, you're going to hear a common theme that they're primarily targeted at these new emerging models that really focus on direct markets and more direct connections between food or agricultural producers and their customers. And that's particularly interesting here in Colorado because, and I'll revisit these stats quickly later, we've had more growth in direct market sales and farm to school and agritourism even than the national averages, and those are impressive. So I think all of these themes I just touched on come around to both explaining why we felt it was a great time to do an overview of the programs available and to hopefully encourage you that some of you are in a great place and in a great state to really take advantage of some of these programs. So with that, I'll turn it over to our speakers.
Thanks for that introduction, Dawn. Next up, we've got Pattie Snidow, who works in Community and Economic Development in her current role at USDA in Colorado. She's the statewide director and Northwest area director. She's a graduate of the Economic Development Institute and a certified professional in economic gardening. She currently coordinates and delivers the Stronger Economies Together program throughout Colorado in partnership with Extension, working with 3 set regions with the focus on regional economic development strategies. I'm going to hand it over now for her to share some about their grant opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us today. And also, my state director has recently asked me to become the statewide Colorado Food Systems Coordinator, and so that is what also brings me to this conversation. And today I'm going to be talking about 3 different programs, actually across 3 different divisions of USDA. They're very different because our audience here is very diverse, and because I don't know our audience as well as I would like to, I don't know your specific projects. And so what I did was I selected 3 very, very different programs. Understand that these are not limited in USDA. There are many more. But when we get to know what your project is, then we can help direct you a little better into maybe what might be appropriate for you. So if we can go on into the next slide, and I'm going to be talking about the Value-Added Producers Grant first. This is under USDA Rural Development. There's the web page so that you can find it. The application, it is open, and the application deadline is February 24th of this year. That's coming up really close. So if you are planning on submitting for that application, you should be working on it now and probably talking to our state office to get information. And I also provided the information for Don Nunn, who is the Value Added Coordinator. That's where you would submit your copy, your paper application by that deadline, and his phone number is there also. So you can call him with questions, and my contact information is also in these slides, and so you're always welcome to talk to me too to see if your project is eligible and see if it's something that works for you. You can also apply electronically through www.grants.gov. Several of the programs, when I was going through websites and reviewing some things, do want applications through grants.gov, which is an electronic submission. Rural Development, which is a separate division of USDA, as each division is has a separate mission, we do not encourage applications through grants.gov because we have seen some technical challenges with that application coming in electronically through that vehicle. And so we very much encourage a hard copy application to our state office. And we can go into the next slide and I'll talk about applicant eligibility. Now there are 4 ways to approach this program, and you'll see that it's called the Value Added Producers Grant. The key word there is producer. Now there are 4 elements there, 4 different ways you can approach it. You can be a cooperative, an ag producer group, a majority controlled producer-based business, and I can get you more definitions if you think you fit any of those. But I want to focus on the independent producer element because that is the common theme through all of those. The independent producer, to be eligible for this application, either is the applicant or is the majority or 100% of the organization, depending on how you apply. And the producers must produce 51% of the raw product that's going to be turned into a value-added product. So production is key. They cannot contract out that production, and they must maintain control of the product all the way through processing. The next one I'm going to talk about is funding details because we always want to know if money is available. So we actually anticipate in 2014 to have about $25 million in funding. And this is a 50% reimbursement grant, which means when you come in for reimbursement with eligible expenses, you expend those monies and then you come into us for reimbursement and we reimburse you at 50%. These are planning grants. There's 2 tracks. Planning grant is generally used for a feasibility study, and then working capital grants. And working capital grants are used for operations. It cannot buy equipment, and this program is unique in that it is strictly for operations. It can pay for salaries and benefits, it can pay for processing, and it can pay for packaging and labeling as well as your marketing activities as far as going to farmers markets or going to trade shows. And there's 2 ways to approach this. You can either be an emerging market, meaning you've got a new product, a new thing you're doing. An emerging market requires a feasibility study, and that's what the planning grant is for. Or you can be expanding your existing market, and by expanding your existing market, you have been in operations for 2 years and you want to grow bigger and expand into, let's say you're in the San Luis Valley and you want to expand into the eastern north or southeast corner of the state, or if you want to go south, or if you want to go up into Pueblo and Denver. That's what that program's for. So product eligibility is the next slide, and product eligibility is, you can consider it value added by several different activities, and these are all uniquely different, and I've got definitions for all of these. One's the change in physical state, lambs to pork chops, milk to cheese, the typical thing you know. Another way is that it's produced in a manner that enhances the value of the commodity. That in shorthand, that's basically like organic or something like that, something that makes it more valuable. And then you can do product physical segregation, and when they talk about physical segregation, they mean that the product is physically produced separately from the next product. And the one that comes to mind is GMO corn, or actually plant pharmaceuticals have very strict boundaries between them and the next product, and so those type of things have a physical segregation. Farm or ranch-based renewable energy is around the energy. It is solar and hydro and wind are not eligible under this particular program. This is using the methane from the cows in a dairy or something like that. Or bio-base that you're selling off farm. That is the farm-based renewable energy. Or locally produced agriculture food products are being distributed within 400 miles of your location. And the next item I'm going to touch on is priority points and reserve funding. And that's our next slide. Priority funds and reserve funding are for 4 different groups. Socially disadvantaged farmers or ranchers are, by definition, they are people who are a part of a group that has been traditionally discriminated against in the past. So that could be because of your cultural background. It could be women are eligible under this application. And to get either the priority points or the reserve funding, and those are 2 different approaches, the applicant must, the socially disadvantaged person, individual owner, must have at least 51% ownership in the organization. To get priority points, they just have to have 51%. To get the reserved funding, they must have 100%. So if three sisters owned a ranch, they could come in for both the reserve funding and the priority points. If a husband and wife owned a ranch and say the wife owned 51%, they could come in for the priority points, but they wouldn't go in for the reserve funding. The next one is small or medium family farm. Small and medium family farms there's a definition on there, and and we can get you that, but most of our farms in Colorado, other than the great big ones, fit under that criteria. Mid-tier value chain, I also sent a fact sheet out on the mid-tier value chain to be sent to you, and that is about processing your product and moving it, and how you move it through that 400 miles of it being local product. And then also beginning farmer or rancher, and that is also, we have that definition. So because I'm covering a lot, these are very, very complex programs, but it's not hard once we figure out your project. I just want to touch on a couple things. It might ring a bell. You might say, hey, I'm eligible for that. I think our project would work for that. And then we encourage you to contact us, and then we'll talk you through it and make sure that you fit the criteria and help you get that information. The next program I'm going to talk about is actually through the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, which is also USDA. And on that slide is also the website for that application. And this is about community foods projects. Now you'll notice that community food projects has about $5 million a year in this program, and it's not been announced yet this year, so we don't know how much they're going to have. But $5 million is not a lot of money. We think $25 million in value added is not a lot. This is not a lot of money to go around the nation, but it is available there, and the projects are funded from $10,000 to $300,000, and you can stretch it out over 3 years to complete the training or complete the project. Dollar for dollar match, except for training and capacity building. And community food projects on the next slide has a nice definition that I pulled off. And as we go through these other elements of this program, I want you to keep this first line in mind, because I think no matter how you're approaching this program, no matter what you're doing under this program, the first line here is going to be the most important thing they're looking for. If you're looking for what's really important in this program, it's going to be ensure food security in communities. And so you can do that through a lot of ways, and we have some examples here on the following slide that talks about different ways that you can approach improving food security in a community. And that's on the next one. There we go. And so, you know, you can read through that list. I'm sure that these slides will be available to you, so I'm not going to read them all for you. But it does talk about urban gardening. It talks about economic opportunities, affordable food to low-income households. All proposed solutions must tie into community food needs, and I think those are key things, and I tried to pull out key things that you want to hone in on when you're looking at these, because you also always need to take your application and relate it back to these key components about these particular programs, and that's the best way to approach these. Also, anytime you're applying for a federal program, what I really encourage you to do is go to the website. I've provided contact information for each of these programs, but go to the website and look up last year's awardees or the most recent awards, because what you're going to see is what they're funding. And you're going to see what they scored and who scored. You won't see the scoring, but you'll see the type of projects that they like to fund, and then you can approach it from that direction if your project fits that. Supporting local food systems, and then if we go into the training and technical assistance projects, which is our next slide, that actually is what's important about this actual grant is that you are actually helping people in a community understand the general grant application. So this is a precursor to a community coming in for the food project. If they're coming in for the community food project, this allows a technical assistance group to come in, first do an assessment of food security needs in the community, and then help that community put together that grant application and help them be funded. And it's really coming in, understanding what's appropriate and eligible for this program. And so there is money for technical assistance and training for an entity to go out and help a community to approach this program. And on the next slide, we talk about, isn't there a plan? Oh, can you go back to, I'm sorry, to the planning? There we go, the planning one. This helps, the next step would be coming in for a planning, and this is the assessing piece. I want you to really notice that in here I highlighted that it must be community-based, not community-placed. So a lot of times we think if we're a group that, a nonprofit or a group that want to bring forward something in a community, and we see a community that needs this type of help, getting local foods and getting quality foods into low-income situations. It's really about helping them do it themselves, not us, you or us doing it for them. So it's not about, this program overall, when you come towards it, remember that it's not about us going into a community and saying, we know how to do this and we're here to help, but it's really about us going into the community and then the community saying back, this is important to us and how do we do it. So you're guiding them, you're supporting them, you're coaching them, but you're not bringing this into them. They must do it themselves. Okay, then we can move on. And then this is the contact information, Jane Clary, and she is in Washington, but this is the contact information for this program. The next program is the Farmers Market Promotion Program. It's also under USDA, but it's on in the Agriculture Marketing Services Division, and this is the website to that link. And the potential activities for the Farmers Market Promotion Program may include, but are not limited to, a whole lot of stuff. There's a long list here, a lot of things that you can do with the value-added program. It's very broad and diverse. The one thing I will say to you that I've seen when I have read the funded applications, throughout those applications, what I see is that in addition to doing this type of thing, they are also implementing the electronic technology that allows people to use their SNAP and their WIC in that farmer's market. So it could include bringing power even to on-site, and it could include implementing those electronic scanners that will allow people to use that. And that's really where, in a farmer's market, we bring low-income people to quality food, and so that's important. And what I've observed by the applications that have been funded in this program is that piece seems to be very important also to this program. So eligible entities for the Farmers Market Program, and what you're going to see is this is very broad as well. This is a large list. And I think when you look at number 2, a producer network, I don't think that's just a group of producers that network. These must be an entity. It must be an organization. And so you'll see down at the bottom, individuals are not eligible to apply. So a group of individuals doing a farmer's market would not be able to apply, but any of these entities could apply on their behalf, I would think, and help them put that together. And then on the funding details for the Farmers Market Promotion Program, maximum grants are $100,000. The awards are in the fall. The funds are available in October, and they must be used within 24 months. But what you're going to notice is over $9 million was awarded in 2012, and it's currently not open, which tells me that they did not have funding in 2013, or they had such a short turnaround that they weren't able to get that funding out and awarded in time. That's kind of happened in the last year for a lot of federal agencies, and so now as we have a little bit longer budget and Congress is settling into a rhythm of how our funding is going to look, I think you'll see that all of the agencies, ours included, will have a little bit more knowledge, and we'll be able to have a little more stability and give you a little bit better information on timing of how funds are going to be expended and when you can apply for funds. So this is $9 million is a good amount of money for these type of projects, and so I would encourage you to consider this program because it's really worthwhile. And then the next one talks about the guidelines of the farmers market, and the farmers market's guidelines and the website to get those guidelines. And this has got everything you ever wanted to know about farmers markets. Now, this website, the website that I gave you also, is really, really quite good. It has got webinars recorded on there. It's got templates. It's got all kinds of tools that you can use to get through this program and to help you apply for this funds. And then I've got a slide with the contact information for the Farmers Market Promotion Program. And these are several people in Washington on the website. There are more, but these are several people that will be able to answer your questions and help you with these programs. And I am going into another meeting in about 3 or 4 minutes. So what I will do with any questions you might have, you can email them into the organizers and they can get them to me and I'll be happy to respond. And this is my contact information. You're more than welcome to contact me. I travel a lot with my job. I work statewide. And so I encourage you to either use my mobile number or my email number because that's the easiest way to reach me. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Patty, for sharing all that great information and for making yourself so accessible to folks. We really appreciate it, and for stepping away from your meeting as well. So good luck with the rest of your day, and I have a feeling you'll be hearing from a few folks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Next up, we have Casey Palmers. She is currently the marketing specialist for the Colorado Department of Agriculture. Before taking on that position, she was the organic program manager for the Colorado Department of Agriculture. She's a graduate of Colorado State University in their Natural Resources Management program and has a certificate in organic agriculture as well. And she's going to talk more about some of the Colorado-specific grant opportunities. So Casey, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? It's always hard to tell.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. So I think I'm just here to kind of represent CDA and talk about what the Markets Division can do and some of the grant opportunities we have. So we can go to the next slide. These are some of the things that the Markets Division does. We hope to not only benefit farmers but also processors. We help you look into renewable energy opportunities. We promote some products. We also have a fairly large international marketing opportunities. And for those of you that don't know, we actually have 12 staff in our Denver office that kind of support all these things. And one of the things we're most well known for is the Colorado Proud organization and program. So for today, the topic today was growing local food markets for Colorado agriculture. So I just chose 4 of the grant programs. We have some other ones, but these are the 4 I'm going to talk about today. The second one in there, CSU's Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, is not well, it's kind of a CDA program, but not completely. But I will discuss that one. We'll discuss Enrich Colorado Ag Grant Program, that is a new grant program that we have, and also something called FSMIP, which is a Federal State Marketing Improvement Program. And then the first one we'll actually discuss is the program that I run, which is the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program. For each of these, I just thought we'll kind of do a quick overview for each of these 4 grant programs. So we'll just talk about the purpose, who's eligible for the program, the types of projects that might be funded, and then the contact info. So I'm hoping you'll get some kind of interest, and then you can contact us to see if you are a good fit, and we can help you with the application process. And then I also do want to, I don't know if all of you are government, but we do talk to a lot of acronyms, and so you might get bogged down by those, but I hope it won't be too bad for this 10 minutes that I have. So my Specialty Crop Grant Program, it started in 2008 through the Farm Bill. It is a USDA program. Colorado has about $650,000 each year to promote specialty crops. To give you an idea, in the fiscal year 13, the USDA funded a total of 694 projects and they actually allocated $52 million to specialty crops in our country. So that's a pretty amazing amount. So we get a small snippet of that, but $650,000 is definitely a good amount for us to work with. It is based on the amount of sales of specialty crop, and it looks like maybe for the next year we don't have the funding yet, but they might actually be changing some of that. So we might get a little more money, but we just don't really know. But California always receives the most so far, and last year they had $18 million to give to the Specialty Crop Grant Program. So pretty a huge amount of money. On the next slide, the main thing to remember is who is eligible, and this term is used over and over again by the USDA. The project must solely enhance the competitiveness of Colorado-grown specialty crops. That is something that you've heard over and over again, and then to make sure that you meet the definition of a specialty crop. So that's fruits and vegetables, tree fruits, dried fruits, stuff like that. Cotton seed, feed crops, those are not something that's included in that definition. And then the CDA also has a matching fund. We require 25% of your total budget to be in-kind or cash. So those are kind of the main things. On the next slide, you'll notice that we have, I've listed some type of projects. We do only accept 2-year projects, even though the grant period is a 3-year grant period between CDA and USDA. We only manage 2-year projects. Not individual farmers, it's really hard to enhance the competitiveness throughout our state if these funds are just going into one farm. Some of the major projects that we've done in the past is we do Colorado Proud Summer Campaign, so you'll see the TV commercials for those. CPAC, which is potatoes, where they partner with CSU for research. Fort Lewis College to plan and evaluate 13 hop varieties. Lavender Association to evaluate lavender varieties grown in high altitudes. The one other thing that I think I didn't put on here but was really important was Rocky Ford Growers Association for cantaloupe. We've helped fund a project for them, especially after all the cantaloupe issues we had. And other food safety stories. So that's kind of the one thing that USDA is interested in. So I am the contact person for this, and the next slide is my contact information. You can go to coloradoagriculture.com, you can click on funding, and my information is there. The USDA website is actually a great website to talk about all of these things, and so I have the links there. I do not have the application out for the next year. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of February, but please contact me if you have questions, because our funding period then, your projects for this next year wouldn't be able to start until March of 2015. So that's kind of how it works for us. So the next grant is also a specialty crop block grant program, but it's through CSU. So within my CDA funding, we actually have CSU apply each year for funds for their projects. So it's kind of a sub-grantee extension. So we allocate about $50,000 per grant year for these projects, and these are individual grower grant projects. So it's called the Grower Research and Education Grants. We call them GREG, yet another acronym. $10,000 for individual producers and up to $25,000 for groups of producers. That is what they require. Some of the eligibility, they have to support projects that address specialty crop issues faced by small, beginning, and socially disadvantaged farmers. They actually give, within CSU's application, they have definitions listed for each type of these things to make sure that you meet it. They must be relevant to Colorado, and they have to be able to identify how results will be distributed, so whether that's field days, those types of things. So CSU's program has all of those things funded in there. On the next slide, some of their projects, and you can get all of this stuff from their website as well, but they've done things like sweet potato production studies, organic fruit marketing research projects, and so these are for, when I was saying before that my program was not one that was for farmers, this one does. And so you may not fit CDA's program, but you might fit into CSU's program, so that's a great way to do it. But the one thing to remember is that those sub-grantees, so those farms actually have to follow all of my standards as well as CSU's, and so we work together. It's a great partnership we have to try to make sure that these guidelines are accessible and user-friendly and everybody can follow those things. The contact information, that is their website. They are transitioning into a new program manager, so that person will be taking over. But they had, I think their call for proposals was actually just passed in January, so this next year would be January of 2015 when you could apply for this grant. So the third grant project that I was going to talk about is actually a CDA grant. It's called Enrich Colorado Ag Grant Program. I'm new to this one. This is just new this year. It's our first program, so I have some information, but not too much. But it is a solely CDA-funded program. It is to aid Colorado companies to offer food products that are grown, raised, or processed in Colorado. This grant is intended to provide necessary funding for technical and operational issues, research, sales, and marketing needs. You can see here that also the max award per project is $17,000. On the next slide, it says to be eligible for funding, these would include feasibility studies and technical projects, such as assessing the potential of establishing agricultural value-added business projects, developing new uses for ag products and byproducts, marketing research, marketing development, and we also require an in-kind or cash matching contribution to at least 50% of the total project budget. Let's see if there's anything else to talk about. I think that's it for that slide. Types of projects, first-time trade show participants, research studies, new project launches. But since this is a new program, we're definitely open to new ideas. So if you don't think that you might fit, you still might contact Shana. Her information is listed here. Shana is the one running the program, and she can probably be a good help and resource to figure out if you might fit, even if you don't think it might be a little bit outside the box. But her application, all of this stuff is on the website. Applications are on there, all of the requirements, everything that you need to know, and it's due by February 28th. So that's a good resource. And then lastly, our fourth program it's called FSMIP. It's Federal State Marketing Improvement Program. And FSMIP, get my notes here, it is a program with USDA and CDA. So we work as a partnership, and the funds would actually come through CDA. And that would be working with, usually we don't have many actually that apply for this. We have one or two organizations that apply for these fundings each year. And it is providing matching, so CDA and USDA work together. I'm sorry, I'm finding my notes here. To encourage research and innovation aimed at improving the efficiency and performance of the U.S. marketing system. So in 2013, there was approximately $1 million in grant funds, and they average about $50,000 per each grant. And a lot of these are basically innovation and marketing agricultural products. So who's eligible for this? As I said, CDA actually applies for the funds on behalf of other entities. Eligible entities that can submit project concepts to us are universities, trade organizations, producer and commodity organizations, and local government entities. The USDA would like to see a strong marketing focus. They must involve research. And one of the other major objectives this year was creating wealth in rural communities. On the next slide, we talk about some types of projects that were funded. These ones I actually went through our website and the USDA website for FSMIP, and these were the ones that I thought were really interesting. California has some large ones, and they were established wineries in California. We had one for Colorado that was developed drought beer quality standards, which was interesting. Increased use of specialty crops for food banks. Mexico and Hispanic marketing opportunities for dried fruit. So some of the proposals that you might get would focus on addressing barriers, overcoming challenges, or realizing opportunities manifesting at any stage of the marketing chain, including direct, wholesale, and retail. So those are the kind of things we would look for if we were going to be doing this program with you. And then I think, I just found out this morning on this slide, the contact is actually Shana again. So her, I mean, Wendy would be happy to help you too, but Shana is going to be taking over this program for this upcoming year. USDA has not put any information out for the 2014 year, but if you're interested, please contact Wendy, Shana, and or I. And then the last slide, I think I just wanted to have a little bit in here was, because of course we can't forget about the international marketing folks. So if you have any export funding information, or if you need any sort of assistance for that, Tim wanted me to mention that there's something called MAP, which is the Marketing Access Program. And in the past 5 years through that program, they've had 71 grants awarded for a total of $2.3 million. So he was very welcoming and is really excited that I was doing this. And so if you guys have any questions about branded funds, please contact Tim there as well. And that's it.
Great. Thanks so much, Casey. We're going to hand it back to Dawn at this point, and I think you'll see some of the slides that she alluded to earlier and go a little bit farther in some guidance on success.
Yeah, so if you want to advance, I did just summarize here, if you look at this presentation again later, some of the points I made before, just explaining why a lot of these programs exist that you just heard about, and go ahead and advance. And the key issues, again, are whatever of these programs start resonating with you as something you may want to do to highlight what your business or community is doing best. Remember, your real case to be made in any of these, no matter the eligibility or the focus, is how something you can try or test in the field is going to help them feel like it was a great investment in the community, or learning more about how different markets are functioning and performing right now. So go ahead and advance. And just, again, to revisit the fact that we're seeing a lot of these happening in direct market agriculture particularly, although a lot of the programs you just heard about work for other models as well. The direct market has probably seen the most growth in programs because there's just a lot of evidence that that's where the most dynamic change is happening right now. So with that, let's advance to a couple more programs. As you all know, we're covering a lot of ground here, and we know we're just hopefully wetting your whistle to ask more questions. Farmers Market Promotion Program was already covered, but just as an insight again, that is some place where if you feel incapable of maybe putting a grant proposal together yourself, CSU has played a role in helping several people compete for those. Our most recent was working with year-round indoor winners market up here in Fort Collins. Another two programs that may work better if you're worried about eligibility is the National Institute for Food and Ag does have a small business innovation research program. It's somewhat like the value-added program you heard before, but in this case, they're a little broader in terms of any innovation, even if you are not a producer yourself, but you're someone who helps a set of producers market better, you are eligible for the Small and Mid-Sized Farm Grant Program. It will compete again in mid-year 2014, and there are both feasibility and working capital phases of those projects as well, just like value-added. So if some of that value-added eligibility criteria doesn't work for you, you may want to explore whether the Small Business Innovation Research Program works for you. And then if you're looking at something even more related to researching some of the performance and behavior markets, there's also a program on economic viability of small and mid-sized farm grants. And again, in both of those programs, people at Colorado State have some experience, so they might be able to help you frame your project. Let's advance to the next slide. Two programs that are very much focused on the West. There's a couple programs out of USDA that aren't state-based, like Casey just explained, but they encompass our whole Western region. And the two that we have found have been really open to working with a lot of different types of projects are the Sustainable Ag Research and Education Program. And in that program, there's grants that are targeted specifically for producers and have a lot of the same criteria as the value-added grants. But for some of you who are organizations that provide technical assistance and training to farmers and food producers, there's also professional development, research, and education grants. And so, again, that's a program that's probably been the oldest of the Sustainable Ag programs, and although it's somewhat competitive, they have a lot of programs very targeted at trying to help us build these more resilient food systems in our communities. And a more narrowly defined one is the Western Center for Risk Management Education, and that's also available for both producers and technical assistance organizations. In both of these cases, universities compete a lot, but it can also be nonprofits and NGOs. But in the Western Center project, they're looking for far more of a strategies that might mitigate risk, and by that it means might make price fluctuations less, might make yields less variable. So that has a little bit more of a risk management tone to it. Let's go to the next slide. A project we have been really fortunate to do well on at CSU is the Beginning and Young Farmers Grant Program. For those of you who don't know, we do have a program in Colorado and surrounding states to provide training to beginning and young farmers. But I did want to make it known that just because CSU has a current program there, for others of you who might be working with beginning and young farmers, you're more than eligible to apply the next time that program competes, which will be again in mid-year 2014. And since we've had some experience with it, we'd be happy to help any group who wants to also look at ways to train young and beginning farmers. Next. Casey already covered this program, but Colorado State does run part of the specialty crop money through a program targeted at smaller and beginning farmers. It did just compete, and again, if any of you want to learn more about what we've done at Colorado State University, you should feel free to reach out to us and ask questions about what has been funded in the past and how you might be able to work it into your programs in the future. Next. And finally, we wanted to highlight that we also have a great partner in the state who's not on this call, and that acronym RMFU stands for Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, and they have a cooperative development center that has been there for a long time, since I've been here at least, and that was 1997. And they have provided support and technical assistance to a lot of projects. And sometimes they'll even entertain notions of small seed money. And for example, some of the things they funded include Colorado Farmers Market Association, some support for the Fort Collins Food Co-op, and they've put some money into various regions of the state looking at food hubs and farm-to-school feasibility. And they, just like Rural Development said, have really gained a lot of interest in value chains, and that's the idea of helping some of you organizations and producers pull together more to do some joint marketing. Next. So the other challenge that Wendy gave me is we often know people leave these webinars with great ideas but not knowing next steps. So I think all of you who signed up today were given a worksheet, and this was something we just kind of formulated to start getting you thinking about how you might best succeed if one of these grant programs sounds like something that will fit. And so I'm going to go through the slides, but a lot of these slides will approach why that worksheet asks you some of the questions you might want to ask yourself or your organization's leadership before you move forward. And first is that you really need to clearly define what you hope to learn, accomplish, provide, or share with your project. So for an example here, the first thing that any of us, if you ask us for help, is going to ask you to do is say, what do you want to do? So in one part of the worksheet, we ask you to break down what are some of your goals. And your goals, again, should be what you want to learn, what you want to grow, how you want to change as an organization. And once you put those goals down, the next thing we'll ask you to do is develop a work plan. Well, how would you go about learning, doing, growing, or changing? And so this is just one example you might be able to see in a grant. And what you'll see is there's three major components you want to think about. What is the actual activity that needs to be done by a person or a partner? Who's going to do that? And what is the timeline for doing that? And probably the real difference between the best and worst grants I've seen is them breaking their to-do list down into bite-sized pieces like that. So you'll notice on the worksheet that was provided with this webinar that there's a place where you can start breaking things down into bite-sized pieces like that. And if you ask any of us who you might approach about your eligibility for a grant or your ability to compete for a grant, those are some of the first things we'll want you to have jotted down so we can give you the best support possible. Next slide. And again, you want to be thinking about how you're going to prove to the government agency or organization who may invest in you, how you prove you're doing something that impacts something that's important to them. So again, just like those bite-sized pieces in the slide before, you want to take that goal, and in this case, instead of thinking about your to-do list, you want to be thinking about how would I measure whether I accomplished what I just told this granting agency I could do. And when you start thinking about how you might communicate that to the person you want to fund and breaking it into something like this where you actually come up with a performance measure of getting more producers to get GAPS, which is a food safety standard, then you start communicating to the person you're trying to get the grant from that you're thinking ahead to how they'll be able to prove their success to the people who are providing the resources, whether that be Congress or the State Ag Advisory Board. So two things that you want to be thinking of, or three things. First is, what do I want to do? How do I make a to-do list that would convince someone that I can accomplish that goal? And then once I've established that goal, what are some things I can measure at the end of my project that will convince the funder they made a good investment? And I gave lots of examples of what those goals might measure. So the next slide. So before I move to the future, we want to leave a little time for questions, but that worksheet is really meant to be a roadmap. You definitely don't have to fill it all out, but I think all of us are really hoping that this webinar is the first in a step to encourage more people to be brave enough to go out and navigate the world of grantsmanship, which is very intimidating to a lot of people. And the worksheet, even if you can't fill all of it out, if you can take some steps to fill some of it out before you approach someone you heard on this webinar who had a program you think you might be eligible for, we'll be able to best guide you onto what program fits well and where you might compete well. We are seeing more and more of what's going on in food systems being at least partially supported by grant-funded projects and efforts. And we hope in all of our organizations to provide more stable staffing to support you guys in doing this. Really the goal for Colorado is to leverage a lot of what we're trying to do in your projects, trying to leverage them with more federal dollars than we've been able to do. And CSU is committed to trying to help you guys do that as technical assistants or helping you in navigating this as well. And I think we heard from our other partners on the call today that that's our goal as well. So next, I think we're ready to take some questions. We leave a little bit of time, at least. There's just a couple other slides here with more information on some of the programs you've already heard about summarized quickly, but I think we've covered everything we hope to today.
Great. Thank you very much, John. And we have not received any questions yet, so I encourage you to take this opportunity to ask questions of John and Casey. As Patty commented, she has to step away back into another meeting and can talk to you offline. But if you've got any questions at all, please do submit them, as you're probably not the only one thinking it. So it would be great to get a couple questions. I'm really excited about just all that we just heard and the tools that have been created by our partners and their willingness to assist individuals in looking at grants, and really encourage all of you to think about what are those creative and innovative ways that funders may be interested in seeing how you can increase production and processing in the distribution of specialty crops in Colorado. It's a major need for us, and so I really do encourage people to look back at the notes and dig into some of the resources that were provided and see what you can do with it. We do have one question that's been submitted commenting it's an incredible amount of information, and it is. There was a real effort to not be overwhelming, but to really be thorough and provide you with as many tools as possible. And the question is, will it be posted? Yes, it will. And we will send all the registrants of this webinar a link to a replay of the webinar, the slides, and then we always summarize the key resources that were identified in an actual email to make it easier to get to those as well. So we will be providing those again, and those resources can also always be found on LiveWell Colorado's website, and I'm guessing that others may copy it as well. As I wait for some more questions to come in, I also wanted to just call out a couple of things going on in the legislature. As the legislative session started 2 weeks ago now, there are 2 bills that have been introduced that are related to food and nutrition. The first is House Bill 1119. It's being led by Hunger Free Colorado and the Feeding America food banks here in Colorado. And that is a tax credit for growers, producers who make contributions to food banks. And you can find, we'll be sending a communication about all of both of these bills and any others that may crop up to our food systems website. But the first hearing on the tax credit bill is February 3rd in the House Agriculture Committee. The second bill that may be of interest to some of you is House Bill 1156, and this is an expansion of the School Lunch Protection Act, which essentially has the state cover the reduced fee portion for that families pay for kids who are eligible for a reduced lunch. It's a 40-cent copay. Currently, the state covers that for preschool through 2nd grade, and this would be extending it through 12th grade. That will be heard first in the House Education Committee on February 10th. So again, it's House Bill 1119 regarding tax credits and House Bill 1156 regarding school lunch. And we will be sending a separate message to all registrants of our webinars and people connected to our food systems regarding these bills. So I do see one more question. Any ability to share the registrants' information to see if there's any potential for regional collaboration? I have to say, because we have not asked people in advance if they're willing to share that information, I'm not comfortable with that. However, if the person asking that question or anybody else wants to reach out to me, Lisa Walvoord, or to Wendy Peters-Muschetti, who does our food systems work, we would happily connect you with some of the regional folks within your region who may be a good match for you. We'd be happy to make some of those introductions, as we're pretty connected to the local food policy councils and some others. We received another email that someone didn't get the attachment, that it only had the logo, so we will include the attachments in the follow-up message. If you still don't get attachments, please, I think you should be able to reply to that email, and if not, again, this is Lisa Walvoord at LiveWell, Colorado, and I can help you out as well. So any other questions? We'll give it another few seconds, and if you want to move ahead. Again, we do provide you.
Lisa,
yeah.
Lisa, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Dawn.
This is Dawn, and I did just want to say we do know it was an enormous amount of information, and I think we were all very diligent to give web links to where you can find more information. We did have to balance the choice between making sure you knew about the wide array with going deep on any one program, but I think the real eye-opener for all of you should be with this whole portfolio of things available. Almost all of you are eligible, and probably every great idea you have has a home among these programs. So we hope we wet your whistle and you go to some of those websites and learn more and reach out if we can be supportive. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Dawn. I think that's a perfect wrap-up for today's webinar, and we thank all of you for joining us, and hope you'll consider joining next month's Food Systems webinar, which is on increasing fresh, healthy options in early childhood settings. So thank you again, and do watch for an email with more information.